Good morning and welcome to SimWorld today here on this spooky Halloween edition of the show. I am Marsh, joined on Halloween Day by J.R. Storm. Good morning, J.R., and happy Halloween to you.
Good morning. Happy Halloween to you as well, Marsh. Interesting night in the world of SimWorld sports last night, so let's get right to it.
Yeah, well, there's many things happened. We're going to start off with baseball, which we're going to come back around to, but a gripe session on a night in which the Pacers and the Celtics played in overtime, on a night in which the Cavaliers beat the Lakers by 24 points, on a night in which the two best big men of the future of the SWBA partook in a matchup, which we're going to talk about. We are not going to talk about a 55th, 52nd, whatever, 50th pick, and it's not going to be our headline, and it's not going to be the opening scroll on a four-letter website when you go to the SWBA section, because it doesn't matter. So, first and foremost, we ain't doing that, but we are starting with a World Series champion. Fifth inning disaster for the New York Knickerbockers ends up, well, not really, the Yanks, ends up downing the Yankees' chance at a World Series, and the Dodgers rally back from 7-6, becoming the first team in World Series history to win when trailing by more than 5. JR, your takeaways from what was a exceptionally entertaining game?
Well, first of all, I think Freddie Freeman winning World Series MVP was an absolutely no-brainer. How about the guy was just historically
great.
He just had a historic performance throughout this World Series. And Tommy Edman as well, he should still be in Cardinal white and red, but that's, on me. Or that's painful memory, but, the Dodgers, good for Shohei, he's the new face of baseball, getting him a World Series championship. And the Yankees, they just imploded, to be quite honest. Yeah. They simply imploded.
Yeah, this looked like the game where the Yankees were going to come out hot. They did. And then the Yankees were going to hold on, and we were going to get some drama. We were going to get the always typical, how many teams have come back from 3-0 to force Game 7? How many teams have come back from 3-0 to win a 7-game series? We're going to get 2004 Red Sox highlights into our 2024 media feeds, because all we were going to be hearing was the Yankees just won Game 5. They forced Game 6 back in LA, and this is going to be a doozy. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be entertaining. Could the Yankees make it? Will the Dodgers blow it? And in one inning, the New York Yankees told us exactly what was going to happen, and it was that they were going to cave in on themselves with a dropped Aaron Judge lineout, a misthrown Volpe throw to third, and then absolutely idiotic play by Garrett Cole not to cover first base. The first thing you install in spring training, ground ball to the first baseman, pitcher comes over to cover, and Garrett Cole just sits there and points. Points at what, Garrett Cole? Point at yourself. You got to be covering that. And that ultimately downs the Yankees. Yes, they end up taking a 6-5 lead in the sixth, but a 2-run 8th inning. And then they have runners on first and second for the heart of the Yankee order, and they cannot do that to tie it back up in the bottom of the 8th. This was a necessary win by the Dodgers. They had to win this World Series, in my opinion, considering all the money that they're technically not paying right now, but still are going to be paying Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts over the long run. But this was a must-win series, and the Yankees proved that they just were not on par with the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers were head and shoulders above everybody in the SMLB, including the New York Yankees, JR.
Yeah, without question. And, as much as it pains me to say it, the Dodgers, like you said, they were simply the better team. They were simply head and shoulders, very obviously, the better team. Getting the fact that Shohei has a championship now, I think is probably the one thing I'm happy about with the Dodgers winning. I would say the fact that Shohei has the championship.
Well, two very different teams, one different league, but two very different caliber teams also took off on primetime television in the SWBA. That would be the Thunder and the Spurs, and don't kid yourself, the 105-93 score makes it look like this thing was close. It was not. The Oklahoma City Thunder proved just how good they are, and the San Antonio Spurs proved just how far they have to go. 6 points from Victor Wembanyama in a 12-point loss. Meanwhile, Chet Holmgren of the future of the SWBA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander included. Chet goes for 19. Shai goes for 18 plus 5 assists on an actually kind of cold night for Shai. And the Thunder absolutely destroy the San Antonio Spurs on national television.
Yeah, it was definitely, outstanding performance, all around from OKC. I think OKC is definitely be very legitimate players in the SWBA this season. And when you look at Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama, they really embody that sort of movement that we've seen in the SWBA over the last, say, 10, 15 years or so of big men starting to do more on the floor and not just be, straight up back down in the post. They can stretch the floor, and they truly both embody that.
Well, Victor Wembanyama did not embody that because he embodied absolutely nothing last night. 6 points over 3 from deep was a pretty non-factor on both ends of the floor. I thought the Thunder did a great job of pulling him out onto the perimeter to get engaged with pick and rolls, to force him to be the primary external defender to guys like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who had a good job. And that's how you're going to have to beat Victor Wembanyama, is getting him away from the paint. And to your point, stretch bigs help accomplish that. And Chet Holmgren is, I wouldn't say the face of the stretch big revolution, because that's been going on prior to his arrival in the league. But this was also, it's why we thinking the Spurs were going to be a good basketball team. It's just not there. Chris Paul, yes, that's a great infusion of a good veteran talent. Yes, Harrison Barnes is a good inclusion of a good veteran talent, but they still don't have good current talent. And Victor Wembanyama it was shocking just how inefficient he was, how not often used he was, but I think that's a credit to the Thunder and Chet Holmgren for their desire to be involved on him. The Thunder are going to be probably the number 1 seed in the Western Conference. They're 4-0 already. That's probably going to come down to Boston and Oklahoma City as far as who's going to have the most wins in the SWBA and get home court advantage in the postseason. But this was an example, and we learned 2 truths that maybe we should have already known. The Thunder are really good. The Spurs, maybe not so much. All right, let's head to our last little segment before we get to our wrap-up, and that is number 2 Gonzaga suffers their first loss of the season to the inconsistent Oklahoma Sooners, 93-90. Caden Shipp with 31 points is not enough because Jace Maguez goes for 33 in a huge win for Oklahoma, carried by Jace Maguez, as their next 2 players, Floyd Henderson and Suno Chamba, both shot under or at 30% in this game.
Yeah, Jace Maguez, had his unquestionable best performance of the season. Struggled with his consistency, obviously, to start. But he showed last night what he can truly do and how he can affect the game offensively. Like you said, Henderson, Chapa, both struggled, efficiency-wise, shooting the ball. But Miguez was right there to pick them up. And, Caden Shipp still did Caden Shipp things for Gonzaga. No more. Or, actually, correct that. Kentucky's still undefeated.
Correct. They are.
I corrected myself before I even got there. But I'm not worried at all if I'm Gonzaga. How hard it is to go undefeated in any sport. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, I'm with you on the Gonzaga point. Not really concerned about the road loss to Oklahoma. Partially because I don't know who Oklahoma is. And yesterday's game was the perfect embodiment of who they are and oftentimes who they aren't. Because I'm watching this game, and midway through the second half, I think actually a little bit later than that, it's like 5 minutes left. Maybe 5 to 10 minutes, something in that range. And I thought this thing was over. Oklahoma had a double-digit lead. They were running away. Gonzaga wasn't getting things done. And then all of a sudden, it's 3 minutes left in the game, and this is a two-possession basketball game. At one point, a 5-point play, which was, in my opinion, a poorly executed play call after the Caden Ship 3 and then the 2 Damian Leffy free throws. And then this suddenly became a 1-point game, and Gonzaga had a chance to win it. And that's what Oklahoma is. Oklahoma is dominant at times. They jump out in the big first half lead. They have a double-digit lead in the second half. And then they are inept at times. And that was the closing minutes of this game where they barely held on. So Gonzaga, okay, 5-1 now on the season. That's fine. But what are we going to get out of Oklahoma? We've got 9 games, and we still have not gotten an answer on them. And the problem here for Oklahoma is this isn't the SWBA where you just have to be in the top part of a conference to get in. They are going to continue to play a very tough schedule, and they're going to run into some very good teams in the Big 12. And unless they decide to get hot at the Big 12 tournament time, the voters are looking at this, and at 4-5, I don't think many of them are going to sit here and say, this is a team that we're going to want in Hoopsteria. That, to me, is a big question mark for this team, and we saw that again last night with their inconsistencies.
Yeah, without question. It's Oklahoma. They're either going to come out and play great, or they're going to come out and play like, a fried dog turd.
Fried dog turd.
Okay. To be quite honest, they've shown that they can compete with, the upper echelon of teams in SimWorld U. But then they turned around and, absolutely dropped the ball, against certain teams. It's like you don't know what you're going to get out of them. They can compete, but you just don't know what you're going to get out of them. And that, I have to agree with you, is why if Hoopsteria obviously were decided today, if Oklahoma don't figure it out, they're not a Hoopsteria team in my mind.
All right, losses to USC on the road, Auburn at home, Butler at home. Butler, who looks fantastic. Their other loss is at Michigan and at Penn State. Give them some semblance of credit. This team started 0-3. They are 5-2 since then. So they have been playing much better. They did get blown out by Michigan, and then it was a 1-point loss to Penn State. So they've been playing a lot better. We'll see if that trend continues. They get Wake Forest and Harvard and Princeton their next 3 games. All right, time for our SimWorld U wrap-up. It was a full schedule of action. Let's dive right in. We're going to start with the Alabama Crimson Tide, number 4 ranked team in the country. They get a 100-73 win. Quincy Henderson leads the way with 19. DJ China, that's a Georgia matchup that you're seeing. That was Baylor beating Georgia 75-73. Xavier McCarthy leads the way for Baylor with 17 points. They move to 4-3, hand Georgia their 6th loss. We talked briefly about it. Here's Dayton again, little highlights from that one. Deontay Poland led the way for the Flyers with 18, but Dayton struggling against some of this big competition. They fall 100-73 at home to the number 4 ranked team in the country. Other top 10 teams were in action last night, including the UConn Huskies, who at home survive a defensive battle with Iowa State 59-54. They move to 5-2 for Reed Redmond and Norman Nation, 17 apiece in this one to push the Huskies to a win at the XL Center. Now at TCU and Indiana, the Hoosiers remain winless with a 78-71 TCU win. Ninny Gibson and Greg Gibson combined 15 apiece, 30 points total. Meanwhile, Mackenzie Mbako 15 and 10, Antonio Reese 17 for Indiana in the loss. SEC action, well, that's not SEC action. South Carolina, that's who is this on our screen right now? Ole Miss, beg your pardon. They get an 83-71 win over St. Mary's. Ole Miss's Mason Green 25-9 to lead the running Rebels. Kansas and Rutgers. Rutgers 64-44. Our first return to action for Rutgers since their loss to Terrell Pearson and company. Dylan Harper 13 points for the Rutgers Scarlet Knights in the win. Kansas State and Villanova. Villanova a 111-76 blowout win. Again, their second game of the season. 70 points in the second half from Villanova. Mugen Williams 23, Aaron Lovejoy 21, Noah Jackson 21 as well in the win. Oklahoma State played host to Japheth Townsend, the Missouri Tigers, and it would be a Dylan Bannon show. Japheth, who 21-13 from Bannon in the 67-64 win. Towns struggles, 13 points, 5 of 18 shooting, 1 of 7 from deep. Battle for Texas, well, part of Texas, as the Longhorns get a 66-53 win in the matchup of top 25 teams. Arthur Lattimore, 16 points for the Longhorns in the win. Carl Holmes led all scorers with 17. Utah Utes suffer their second loss of the season, a 3-point tough one at home to Ohio State, number 19 ranked Ohio State. Cody Johnson, 23-7, leads the way for the Buckeyes. Meanwhile, Trayton Hendon came out of his early slump with 20 points and 6 threes. Head to Washington, Iowa on the road. Talk about Lamarian Sherwood on the road. 30 points, 14 boards, missed just one shot in a 98-63 beatdown for the Iowa Hawkeyes. And close it out, Georgia Tech, Donta Walker, 22, 17, and 6. And Georgia Tech moves to 6-1, looking like they're going to be a top 10 team. 79-58 win over formerly ranked, now unranked Washington State. All right, that is our show for today. We've got no SimWorld U action here on a Halloween night, but we do have SimWorld U returning tomorrow, Friday, November 1st. Oh, that's November 8th, as we got a little flex action of Memphis and Tennessee. Give you the preview for next week's game of the week, a little battle for Texas. We got some other matchups going off tomorrow night. Virginia Tech, Colorado, UConn, and Oregon, UCLA, Virginia, Mississippi State back in action against USC, Villanova, Stanford. But again, our game of the week next Friday night, 8:30 p.m., Memphis and Tennessee, a little in-state rivalry between two top 25 ranked teams. All right, that's our show. We're back tomorrow with Rick Blaze. We're talking all things SWFL, maybe some SWBA talk as well. JR, as always, great to see you. Thanks for coming on the show. All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
This has been a presentation of SimWorld Sports.